Charles Manson, one of history's most notorious mass murderers. His grisly deeds, his cult family, and his bizarre murder trial are legend.
These murders were perhaps the most bizarre, savage, nightmarish murders in the recorded annals of crime.
There are still these remnants of the Manson family.
In 1970, I had a front row seat at the Manson trial.
Bill Curtis, CBS News, waiting at the Los Angeles Hall of Justice.
40 years later, I still have questions.
Who is Manson?
Manson himself, if you were to ask him, may not know who he is.
I'm nobody. I'm nothing.
Tonight, how one man's delusion sparked a murderous rampage that still fascinates. The Los Angeles County Hall of Justice. It's a ruin now, but it was once the venue for LA's most notorious murder trials. In 1970, CBS News sent me here to cover the trial of Charles Manson and 3 of his followers.
It has been an extremely long trial, nearly 10 months.
40 years later, I'm revisiting the Manson case to find out why the name Manson still provokes such fascination, fear, and wonder.
The name of Charles Manson will be around for some time. Bill Curtis, CBS News, Los Angeles.
They have preserved it beautifully, almost in a surreal fashion in which the entire building is gutted. And yet, here is this little, almost like a movie set, that is the same paneling, the same layout, and all of a sudden, the trial comes alive again. These were the spectators. I sat here along with my courtroom artist for CBS, Howard Brody. Every day for about 7 months, why we would come in, listen to testimony. And when it started, we didn't really think it would be that big. But all of a sudden, Linda Kasabian got on the stand and began talking about this horrible murder with all the brutality and the blood, and America was captivated.
High above the smog of LA, nestled in glowing canyons, are some of the most beautiful homes in the world. Here in the hills of Bel Air, one can get the feeling that crime happens anywhere but here. But that illusion was shattered on the morning of August 9th, 1969, by the screams of a housemaid. She came running from 10050 Cielo Drive, saying the inside of the home was a bloodbath.
At this point, you must realize that we only have tentative and very meager amount of information.
The body is badly mutilated.
This I'd rather not discuss.
In terms of publicity, sensationalism, the biggest case that we had in the history of the LA office.
Vincent Bugliosi prosecuted the Manson case for the LA County District Attorney's Office.
When the police arrived at around 9 in the morning, the first thing they saw, of course, was Parent slouched dead behind the driver's seat of his car.
Stephen Parent was an 18-year-old boy visiting a friend in the guest house. He was the first victim, shot 4 times.
Then they walked up the driveway and they saw 2 bodies on the front lawn, the bodies of Frykowski and Folger.
Abigail Folger was a 25-year-old heiress to a coffee fortune. Wojtek Frykowski was her boyfriend. Folger was stabbed so many times that her white nightgown appeared bright red.
Then they approached the house, and on the flagstone porch of the house, there was blood everywhere. They also saw the word pig, P-I-G, printed in blood on the outside of the front door. They entered the residence, and what did they see there? The bodies of Sharon Tate and Jay Sebring.
Jay Sebring was a jet-setting hairstylist to the stars. 26-year-old Sharon Tate was a young actress, the wife of famed movie director Roman Polanski. Tate was 8.5 months pregnant.
Poor Sharon was on her side in kind of a fetal position. They both had ropes tied around their necks, and there was just blood everywhere. It was just something you don't even see in a horror movie.
The very next night, in a two-story home across town from the Tate murder scene, a grocery store owner named Lino LaBianca and his wife, Rosemary LaBianca, were found brutally stabbed.
Well, when the police arrived, they see Lino lying in a pool of blood, a pillowcase over his head, the word war, W-A-R, carved on his stomach, a fork also stuck in his stomach, a knife in his throat. In the living room, poor Rosemary LaBianca, in a pool of blood, stabbed to death. On the walls of the LaBianca residence were the words, "Death to pigs" and "Rise." On the refrigerator door were the words, "Helter Skelter," misspelled H-E-A-L-T-E-R. Just an incredibly brutal, savage murder.
In Los Angeles, people were growing restless. The fear was palpable.
Tell me about the community after the crime. It was terrorized.
Because of the incredibly brutal, savage nature of the murders, and they seem to be random, this induced a lot of fear. And sometimes, Bill, you can measure fear. And here in LA, virtually overnight, the sale of guns, guard dogs, the use of private security services dramatically rose overnight. So the whole city was terrorized because it was so random.
The fear and paranoia continued for 3 months, until the police got their big break. It was a jailhouse confession that came out of the walls of an LA County jail for women.
This crazy bitch just told me that she killed Sharon Tate.
In the fall of 1969, 2 months after the Tate LaBianca murders, Virginia Graham was locked up for writing bad checks. One of her fellow inmates was a 21-year-old girl named Susan Atkins.
She approached me when we were up in the dormitory and came and sat down on the cot and started talking to me.
Susan asked Virginia if she had heard about the murders at Sharon Tate's home.
And she comment to me was, "Well, you know who did it, don't you?" And I said, "No, I don't." And she says, "Well, you're looking at her." And she described how Sharon begged and begged for her life and said, "Please, please don't kill me. I just want to have my baby." And she said, and I looked at her straight in the eye and I said to her, "Bitch, I'm going to kill you." She says, and I killed her.